many of you get ready to sit down at the dinner table? Do you know where your next meal is coming from? If you do and you've answered yes, then you're part of the roughly 90% of households across the country who are considered food secure. But what about the remaining 10%? It may not seem like a lot, but in fact it equates to about 34 million people, with 9 million being children considered food insecure. So we did some digging a little bit deeper into these numbers to give you a better perspective, and we discovered that rural areas across the country and right here in Florida seem to be impacted the hardest. So here's what we found. We looked at the Bay Area. Citrus County, it has the highest percentage in our area, nearly 15% of the population being food insecure. Hardy and Hernando, they also have concerning numbers. You can see them in there in red, but every county in our area is higher than the state average of 10.6%.
So how do we address the growing need for food here in our community? It's been an issue we've been closely following here since the pandemic forced many people to turn to food banks for help. In tonight's Full Circle report, we dig deeper into the changing needs of food banks here in the Bay Area to not just feed people, but pull them out of poverty. ABC Action News reporter Michael Paluska shows us how the journey to do that is taking on a whole new look.
Fresher food that creates a healthier community.
Each one of these explosions represents something.
And finally, we imagine economic transformation that lifts all of us.
Feeding Tampa Bay skipped the cliched shovels in the dirt and ribbon cutting. For this groundbreaking to celebrate the community's future, they blew stuff up. When the dust clears, a massive warehouse will eventually rise out of the ashes. But to get to this point, you have to go back in time and meet people at food banks across the country and volunteers like Barbara Smith. Since 2019, Smith donated her time to Feeding Tampa Bay, helping out at Trinity Cafe 2. How she got here, remarkable.
It got pretty bad to where it was difficult. There were times when I would just sit and cry, but I didn't stay there. I came and volunteered anyway to get my mind off of it.
Where would you be right now if you didn't have a place like Feeding Tampa Bay where you can volunteer and help out and inspire others?
If I didn't have a live-in position and a feeding, I would probably be on the street. You ready to get started? Yeah. All right.
A few times a week, Smith pays it forward, bringing a friend like BB.
She picked me up and dropped me off, and she's just a very kind and wonderful person.
Smith is a success story we wanted to talk about with the president of Feeding America, Katie Fitzgerald, and Julie Yurko at the Northern Illinois Food Bank.
And so I would say the shift from enough food to customer focus has been not only the right thing to do, inspiring and empowering thing for everyone involved in this.
How we think about ending hunger is helping people today and really helping them tomorrow no longer need that service if at all possible.
By definition, you all have ended hunger in your community. What does that mean?
We are able to provide enough food in every one of our 800 plus communities across Northern Illinois. We have a mapping tool that we use. It allows us to track at the census tract level how many meals needed, how many meals people are at risk of missing.
We estimate 53 million people last year accessed the charitable food system in the United States.
So 53 million people, if you could get that to zero, that'd be great.
You bet, absolutely. That's what we're setting to do. That's what we want to do.
Where we're standing right now is in the footprint of the new warehouse.
Yeah, Michael, you're standing in the middle of the warehouse.
Thomas Mance, the president and CEO of Feeding Tampa Bay, wants the 10-county region they serve to be hunger-free by 2025. The new facility able to take the nonprofit from 95 million meals a year to more than 150 million. And when I talk to Julie, I know that they've met their definition in their community for ending hunger. We're not there yet. What has held us back to not reach what Northern Illinois has?
Well, you know, in a simple answer, a facility, right? So think about it this way. Right now, 75% of our food that we recover is perishable. 14% of our storage is. We turn away 25 to 30% of the perishable foods offered to us. So when we get something like a produce product like carrots, potatoes, cabbage, they come in tractor trailer loads. We're forced to push all that into the community immediately and say, here, digest all of this now. Well, what happens if we now have a kitchen where we can repackage that, flash freeze it, prepare it as a meal, and take advantage of creating the longevity? So that's part number one we can't do today.
After visiting 30 food banks across the country, Mance learned it's not all about food.
You came in for a meal, but oh, by the way, you can sign up for a class, you can see a person about financial literacy, healthcare. Now we're starting to say, okay, can we start to navigate you through some of the underlying challenges in your household so that ultimately you create capability to move out of our care?
Remember Barbara Smith? Her journey started with a single meal. Now she stands shoulder to shoulder with the president of Feeding Tampa Bay and had the honor of detonating the first explosion during the groundbreaking.
This is such an honor. When Shannon asked me, that I can do this. And if it can be helpful to someone else, that's what I want, and that makes me happy.
In Tampa with photojournalist Reed Moeller, Michael Paluska, ABC Action News.
And as we mentioned earlier, 9 million children across the nation struggle with food insecurity. This really caught my attention, so I wanted to go beyond the headline here and reached out to Feeding Tampa Bay to see if they could provide some local context to help us understand what is being done. They say in our region alone, almost 7,000 households and 10,000 kids struggle to know where their next meal is coming from. To help combat that, however, the organization has created Feeding Minds school pantries. There are 73 of those in 5 different counties with plans to expand. Now, during this school year, over 1 million meals have been served by Feeding Tampa Bay. Food insecurity, though, can really have some long-term impacts on our kids. I looked into this, and according to Feeding America, kids who grow up food insecure in their first 3 years of life tend to have more health and developmental issues, and they also tend to struggle with behavioral or social issues.